David Roth and Kerry Long are co-directors of Staples Players, the Staples High School drama troupe. And if you've seen a Staples play, and if you haven't, I don't know why you haven't, but if you haven't, you know that it is far more than just a high school drama troupe. Both David and Kerry are Staples High School graduates. So from a graduate's point of view, though from a much earlier era, welcome Kerry and David to 0688.
How much earlier?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So a little bit of history. When I was at Staples, Players was doing shows like War and Pieces, which was a anti-war original drama that ended up at the UN and I think in the USSR.
Right, that students actually wrote, right?
Students wrote it, yeah.
Yeah.
Players did Peter Pan, in which Peter Pan actually flew. And yet, when I was there, it was only 10 years old. Players was still relatively new.
Yeah.
So you want to give a quick history of Staples Players?
Staples Players since then?
Sure. Basically, I think the Westport high schools always had a theater program. I've seen some pictures and stuff like that. But Craig Matheson and Steve Gilbert basically started what we know of as Staples Players in '59, which I think is about the time when the new high school was built, right?
Exactly.
So for some reason, that is where Staples Players is considered to start. I think that's where the name started and sort of the whole, philosophy, maybe?
There's a Christopher Lloyd
yeah.
context, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd, from what we understand, Christopher Lloyd was sort of the
student that
said,
hey,
that was really behind.
Why isn't there a theater group?
Yeah, or why isn't there a theater group that's sort of more involved and more passionate and that type of stuff. And so I don't know how exactly Craig got asked to do it.
And we're talking Christopher Lloyd of Back to the Future fame.
Yes.
For those of you
Lloyd.
that don't immediately think of Doc Brown in Back to the Future movies.
So anyway, it started then, essentially, and Steve Gilbert ran the technical part of it, which I think at the time was called
there was initials.
STS.
Staples Stage and Technical Staff.
Oh,
okay, so I was right. SSTS. Okay.
Yeah.
And they they basically were all part of the same group, but they had the different, sort of different sections there. And they, Craig's philosophy and Steve's philosophy was that kids can do more, that they can really, if you create an environment where they are provided with the
students are challenged and given autonomy and, sort of given responsibilities as a professional might.
Yeah. And that if your expectations are higher, that they can really rise to that. And so I think that that's really where Staples Players, as we know it, started. And as you said, they did Peter Pan, but they also did some war plays, they did Soldier, I think was the other one that they did that was really sort of anti-war besides War and Pieces. And so that was very much part of the 60s and what was going on at Staples with, the walkouts and that type of stuff. And then throughout the years, I think Craig was there, I think from '59 to about '68, maybe, something like that. And then Alpea came and took over for Craig because Craig moved into an administrative position. And then, so Al ran the program all the way through the 70s, the 80s, and into the 90s until he retired in '96. And he continued to produce theater that was exciting for kids and to really to trust the kids to really do the stuff on their own, or not completely on their own, but to really excel. And so then Al retired in 96. Judy Luster ran the program from 96 to 2000. I started in 2000, and then Kerry joined me about what, like 2002,
I don't remember.
2003,
Three,
somewhere
maybe,
in there.
maybe three, yeah.
So that's kind of a basic history. There's a
Yeah.
lot more to it, but
So you talk about challenging the kids.
yeah.
How do you do it, and what makes Staples Players different from ordinary or even really good high school groups? What's the secret sauce?
I don't know that there's a secret. I don't know that it's that much, better, or I don't know what better is maybe not the word, but then any other high school group. I think that
It
we
is.
are well. I think that we're much more supported by the town, and I think that that is huge. And we're supported by the parents of the students as well. That they see theater as something that's important for their kids to do if the kid wants to do it. And I think in some places that's not the case. And in some places, the school doesn't value the theater as much as a place like Staples does. And I think that comes from sort of the history of Westport being involved in the arts and, just having that town, having the Westport Country Playhouse, having professional actors here, having all sorts of artists that,
And other programs that the kids can, even before they come to us, that they learn from.
exactly,
and
the
I mean,
middle school
great
programs.
middle school programs.
Even the elementary schools now are doing shows. I think almost every elementary school in Westport now does a play. And so these kids, I mean, there's hundreds of them in elementary school doing a play every year. And it's a great way to learn so many skills beyond just acting.
For example,
Leadership, working as a team,
So much collaboration.
so much collaboration,
Responsibility, deadlines. I mean,
disappointment.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I mean, who doesn't face disappointment in their life? And, as sports teaches that as well. But I think that so many of the students that we've had that have gone on to things outside of the arts have said, I learned so many things in players that are applicable to my job in finance or whatever they're in,
I know there's no such thing as a typical Staples player, but what kind of kid is attracted to the program?
I think a kid that really wants to just, I think the kids that are most into it and stuff like that are really into not just putting on a show, not just acting in a show or that type of stuff, but really creating everything that surrounds players, sort of this community and this environment where we work to, we have this, I think theater is a unique thing in that you work towards this one goal. It's not I think, everything goes into those 2.5 months that are leading up to a production. And so I think that it's somebody that really thrives on that and really thrives on all of the different processes, all of these different pieces. I mean, theater is unique, I think, as an art form in that most art forms, you are working in isolation. They're usually, one or two people working on something. And even though an orchestra or a band or a choir, those are certainly groups of people, but they're working, everybody's kind of got their own, how am I trying to say this? It's all the musicians and then the conductor, as opposed to with a play, you've got the lights, you've got the sets, you've got the props, you've got the costumes, you have all of these completely different elements that come together to create this one unified thing. And so I think it's kids that thrive on that creativity and creating this event and telling this story in a unique way that I think is unique to theater. And one thing that Kerry hit on that I think is also one of the reasons why Players has this I don't know, wonderful vibe to it, or these kids that are so devoted to it, is this community. And the fact that we can do a show like a show like we're doing Elf the Musical this fall, and that
Based
show,
on the Will Ferrell classic
yes,
holiday movie that we all love.
and it's a really cute musical.
It's very
Um,
sweet.
But that show will run 7 performances, and that auditorium holds 960 people. And it's very possible that 7,000 people will come see, or, I mean, subtract a little bit for the math, but 6,800 people are going to come see that play. And that is the fact that they know that at the end, that if everything goes well, and usually it goes well, that they're going to have this
Feeling
payback,
and
this reward.
feeling that they're a part of the community and that the community appreciates them. I mean, I think the kids feel like rock stars, at a certain point, because the community is so welcoming and, grateful for the stuff that their hard work.
Yeah.
I've said this before, from my perspective as a soccer coach, I go into every season knowing I got 11 players, where they're going to be here. This is my schedule. I want to be here on September 1st and here on October 15th. You both start with a complete blank slate. You have to create sets and staging, and every show is different. How do you do it?
We have a great team.
It's very tiring too. No, it takes a lot of work, and we do have a really wonderful team. And Players is really, really lucky to have so many staff members that are so devoted to making the experience for the students the best it can be. And the students are devoted to making their own experience the best
And
that
the
it can be.
parents.
And the parents. I mean, there's a lot of people going into it. Like,
So a lot of
tons
what we do is
people.
juggle all of those balls
Yeah.
and make sure that everybody's on task for what
Yeah,
they've
it's just a
agreed
lot
to
of
do.
organization.
Um,
There's a lot of spreadsheets.
there are a lot of spreadsheets.
And how do you? But it starts with the selection of the play.
Yes.
What goes into that? How do you decide what to do? I would imagine there's a balance there as well between different types of shows.
Well, in the fall, we tend to try and pick a big musical that we know might be popular with audiences and that we can cast a lot of kids in, because we want to start the year off with people having enthusiasm, like the students, knowing that they're going to audition and there might be a part of a cast of 65 people. And then,
For example,
what
what are some of those shows?
Mamma Mia, Newsies, Grease. These are
Guys
from
and
Guys and
Dolls.
Dolls.
Hello Dolly.
Hello
The
Dolly.
Music Man.
Right. Sort of, sometimes they're classics, sometimes they're contemporary. We've done, I guess we've mixed, we try and mix it up. So it's sort of like, if we've done a contemporary show for, several years running, it's like we need to sort of go back and look
Do a
at
classic.
Yeah, do a classic. So, because, part of it obviously is educating kids about theater. So we want them to have as well-rounded of an experience as they can. I mean, sometimes it works better than others, but
Yeah. But there's really not a science to picking
No.
a show. We just we look at them, and then we're like, hey, what about this one? And we're like, oh, okay.
And
This-
it has
this
to
could
have
work.
stuff, it has to be good enough that it's not going to annoy you for 2 months, 3
Yep.
months. You're going to spend a lot of time with it. So it's like, you got to like it.
And sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah.
But we like to have lots of roles. We think I think one thing that is somewhat unique with Players is we do a lot of double casting. And the reason we do double casting,
Meaning that 2 people will share the role and
do different
alternate.
do
performances.
performances on different nights. And part of the reason we do that is to give more opportunities and to provide opportunities to the younger kids. I think a lot of high schools, the principals are all played by seniors who have gone through it and that type of stuff. And we like, by the time a kid gets to be a junior or senior and maybe is taking on a leading role, that they've had some other roles that not only so that they have that experience, but also so that we have a chance to work with them. A lot of it is being able to communicate with another person and to help them create a role, and to help them work with the other actors in the scene. And so hopefully, a lot of times by the time somebody gets to a larger role, they have more experience under their belt, and we have more experience working with them. So we're always looking for a play that's got a lot of roles, and a lot of, even if it's a, if it's a 2-line role or something like that, it still gives us a chance to work with those people sort of on a more one-to-one basis for those scenes. And besides that, I mean, things like Elf, we wanted to choose something that was fun and light, with this election season coming up. We just figured
Thought it'd be a good
everybody's
escape.
going to be, looking for something that has no agenda, just as a pure escape comedy. And so that when we hit on that, and when we started looking at that, it was like, okay, this is a good fit for right now.
And we do really love when the little kids come to see the shows too. I mean, like, I remember I saw my first Players show when I was in 3rd grade, and I thought it was the coolest thing. It was Anything Goes. I think it was like 1989. And I thought the people in it were just like rock stars. I thought they were so cool. And I was like, could not believe that I was watching, a high school show. So, I think that the kids still feel that way to a certain degree. I mean, I know like our students are like, oh, some little kid came up to me and asked for my autograph, or, and it fosters such a sense of community, and we just find that very important.
So a lot of them are rock stars. And I know it's like asking you to pick your favorite child, although
We're
it's
not going to
easy
pick
for
that.
you 'cause
Yeah,
you
we
only
just
have
have one.
We can
She's
tell us who our
downstairs.
favorite
Yeah.
child is, yes.
But can you single out some former players who
Oh
have
gosh.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I can single out people that have gone on to like professional,
Sure.
that type of thing. We have obviously Westport's golden child, Justin Paul, who is,
Yep.
one Emmy away from an EGOT at, the ripe old age of not even 40.
And has thanked public education
Yes,
in a
no,
lot of his
and
awards
I'm just
acceptance
teasing him about the
speeches
golden
and,
child because he's a dear friend of ours.
yes.
Um, And we've had what we're really proud of too is that we've had so many students go on to things, not just on stage or on the screen but backstage. We've had directors. Our former student Gina Ratton is like a wonderful director. Actually, I was just talking to my friend Kaylee Beretta, who used to be our assistant director. And she is working with Justin Paul at Disney Theatricals, developing The Greatest Showman musical that's going to come to Broadway. And when they get to collaborate as professionals, like 2 former students, I think that is just the most fulfilling thing and the coolest thing. And a lot of that has happened. Like a lot of those instances have happened. And I think the kids really, but they're not kids anymore. These young adults really appreciate having that sort of network.
And not just and it's not just actors. We have a lot of kids that have gone into
Technical theater,
lighting design or stage management or directing. Playwriting, all of those different aspects of it, or even Michael Altbaum is the company manager of Outsiders on Broadway,
that
and
just won the Tony.
is always a company manager of a Broadway show. Like he never stops working on stuff like that, and so it's really nice that they do that. But I agree with Carrie that it's other that other people still use those skills even if they're not directly in the art.
So it's sort of hard to like single people out because there really are just. I mean, you just did a blog about this recently about just like all the different things.
Dozens.
Dozens. And that was just this summer.
Yeah.
And that was just who I happened to see on social media. It wasn't even any sort of, comprehensive list of, and that's just, whether someone's doing community theater or they're choreographing a workshop or, any of those things, they're all still like scratching that creative itch, which is just great.
And I mean, obviously, we've just been here for 24 years, as directors of the program. But I mean, the 25 years that happened before that, there's still. I just read somewhere that Lindsay Law. Did you know
Lindsay
Lindsay?
Law.
Okay, he's got a new book out. He's got a new novel out. And I guess he's been working in television and for years. And so it's
David Marshall Grant,
Yep.
Christopher Lloyd.
yes,
Yep.
exactly.
So let's talk about challenges. What keeps you up at night? And
COVID was tough.
COVID was very
COVID
tough.
was, we're still, the numbers of the program and the numbers of the kids that are involved still has not come up to what it was before COVID. And that's upsetting, just in terms of less kids having that opportunity. And I think, while we really, we were able to, because of the support of our administration and the health commission in Westport and that type of stuff, we were able to do radio shows. So we were able to keep the kids really active during COVID. It certainly wasn't the same, but I think, they didn't have that opportunity at the middle schools. And so we're seeing, I mean, our senior class right now is the smallest class I think we've had since we've been here, since we started 24 years ago. So it's starting to get a little bit better. But it was tough because theater was something you do indoors and you have to be
Able to see your face.
close to other people
Yeah.
and that type of thing. So it was really, there was a full, year and a half there
Yeah.
where the middle schools weren't able to do anything
yeah,
in terms of that. And the music department feels it the same way as well. So that's the problem with the collaborative arts, is that you have to collaborate. You can't do it by yourself. I
Yeah.
think painters, you can paint at home. You could continue to pursue your art. In fact, probably some people even went even further into that. And sports, obviously, a lot of sports had the advantage of being able to be outside, and so they didn't have quite the restrictions.
And, obviously, COVID affected theaters across the country too, around the world, I'm sure. Many, many theaters either faced hardship or had to close. And so we're definitely very lucky that, we're just a school.
how about challenges of an individual show? Is there any show where absolutely everything went wrong that could go wrong, and you look back and you say, "Wow, how did we ever get through that?"
I would say the most recent big challenge was basically the last big show we did, which is James and the Giant Peach, which we thought, it's a book, it's a show about a children's book based on a children's book. There's these fun characters, music by Justin Paul and Benj Pasek. It'll be fun. It'll be easy. The show's not that long. Well,
yeah, that was. I mean,
turns out there's a lot of magic in children's
not that a lot
books,
of
and you
things
have to
went
create
wrong,
that magic. No,
but
things
it
didn't go
just
wrong.
was-
It was just
Yeah.
very labor intensive, and I think we just sort of we underestimated the complications of creating magic for children.
Yeah. Well, you get to a page and it says, the peach rolls down the hill, squashes ants on Sponge and on Spiker, continues to roll down the hill, crashes through the walls of
And all this
of Willy
takes place
Wonka's
in
chocolate factory.
45
and, you know,
seconds.
and all of this, and it's like, okay, and there's no
suggestions about how to
it.
do that.
Yeah,
Sometimes in a script that is complicated, you'll have stage directions, or you'll have a guide that sort of says, like, this is a suggestion of how to do this, that type of stuff. Not so much. I mean,
Okay.
even we actually, when we did Newsies, we were one of the first high schools to do Newsies because
Yes,
of,
we piloted it for
because
the
of
Disney theatricals.
connections.
because of Kaylee Beretta, yes. And part of what we did for that show was they were creating a guide for high schools to be able to put on Newsies, because it's somewhat complex in terms of there's no there almost was no time for sets to change. So
Well,
it had to
any
be,
show
it had to be
that's
very fluid.
Any show that's based on a movie tends to go from location to location to location very quickly.
Like Elf, for example.
Yes.
But so in that sense, we problem solved a lot of that, of how to do that on a high school stage. And so still to this day on their website and in this book, all of Kerry's photographs from our production are still used by Music Theater International, who licenses it. But James and the Giant Peach had no such guide. And so it was, I would say that was one of the more challenging ones that we've done in a while.
And just, I think probably one of our biggest challenges is just sort of managing all of the different aspects of things that go into a show, because there's just so many people involved, and keeping everybody happy and on task, and I think that's a challenge as well. Just because it is just an after-school program. It's not a full-time professional, thing. So
and the kids have other
and the kids
other
are
lives.
and they're pulled in so many different directions, and I think that they're increasingly pulled in different directions. So
agree.
that is a challenge as well, and we don't want to add stress to their lives in any way. So I'm sure we do.
In terms of pressure, do you feel pressure because every show is wow, and so the show is over, and then you have to create the next wow. Is there pressure on both of you?
I would say yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think people have an expectation when they come to see our shows, and I think our reputation propels people to come see the shows so that we're able to do shows the way that we want to do shows. It's so yes. I mean, I think we're actively trying to figure out ways to simplify a little bit, just to sort of take the pressure off of everybody, us, our staff, our students, the parents, et cetera. I think sometimes like a show like James and the Giant Peach, or if it turns out to be a really big technical show, and especially if it's bigger than we thought it was going to be, that can really put a lot of
strain on,
it's more days that the kids have to come in and paint, and more props that we have to build, and more things that we have to figure out. And so that really, we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to find ways to simplify what we do a little bit.
And then you've got the rewards. You've got Marvin Hamlish's widow coming to see a chorus line and inviting the kids to
that was
to
pretty
New York.
cool. Yes, she arrived unannounced, and
you found a ticket for her.
Found a ticket for her and her friend.
She left a message
and
on the machine, right?
Yeah,
She's
I think so.
This is Terry Hamlish. I'm Marvin Hamlish's widow, and I noticed that online it says all of your tickets are sold out. I
were
was
like, "We
wondering
can
if
find
you
one."
might be able to do that.
But then the kids, then long story short, she invited us to perform, all the students in the cast of A Chorus Line. This was in 2013, I think, at a benefit for the American Cancer Society that was in Marvin's name. And so there was all these Broadway performers, and the kids literally, some of them sang duets with them. And then last year, or was it last year? It was sometime recently, she showed up again and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a group of young people to perform with Maria Friedman, who is a very, very well-known performer in London.
And better known now.
Better known now, because she just directed the Broadway revival of Merrily We Roll Along with Jonathan Groff and Daniel Radcliffe. And so the kids had, master class with her and performed on stage with her in Stamford, and a couple other Broadway performers. And so having those type of opportunities is something that we really love to be able to help facilitate for the students, because you're literally learning from the people that are doing the thing in the world.
And ironically, several years before that happened, when the first time we did 12 Angry Men, which was a black box show, we got a similar message from Reginald Rose, who wrote the film, the screenplay to 12 Angry Men, his widow called and said, I saw that you're doing 12 Angry Men. I'd really like to come see it. I'm Reginald Rose's widow. Could you possibly get us a ticket? So, of course, we did the same thing. And then she came back, I think it was the next day, and she brought all of Reginald Rose's kids to come see the production the next day.
Wow.
So it wasn't even the first time that.
But I think
that's happened.
being so close outside of New York, we've been able to like bring in Shayna Taub, who just won a Tony for Suffs. She came in when we did 12th Night, and she did a workshop with the kids. Justin Paul just came in and did a workshop with the students when we did James and the Giant Peach. So it's like they just sort of are like, oh, the composer of the show always comes.
Stephen Schwartz is
Stephen
called.
Schwartz, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've created and sustained something that's remarkable. So the last question.
Yeah.
What show is out there that you haven't done that if it's a reach, but if you ever had a chance, you would love to do it?
Oh, wow. It's the last question, so we should have a good answer for that.
Well, there's a lot of shows that we just sort of really don't have the opportunity to do just because of one thing or another, like of casting requirements.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shows that we would love to do, but unfortunately we don't necessarily have the diversity of a student body
That's what I would say.
in our program.
Ragtime.
Yeah,
I'd
I
love
knew
to
you
do-
were going to say
I'd
ragtime.
love to do ragtime, but it's we don't have the diversity to do
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, we would love to be able to do some more shows, but the list is somewhat limiting by, certain factors at Staples.
And a lot of those shows have really great messages to them too, and we're not able to do that.
Well, the message you've been sending for you and your predecessors for well over 50 years is one of creativity and originality and professionalism. And it's a great message. And thank you, Kerry Long and David Roth, for sustaining it and for being here to talk about Staples
Dan.
Players on 06880, the podcast.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you. Thank you for always being such a big supporter
Yeah.
of ours. We
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it.
It's easy.
It's
You make it
huge.
easy. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.